Greetings, earthlings, wisdom keepers, wisdom seekers. Welcome back to Wizdom Dropz, your source for daily drops of wisdom and savvy cat astrology. Meow. Tanya Lasagna back again, layering together all the celestial sauce and nodal noodles into something digestible. And today we are discussing the Cancer full moon, which perfected Friday evening, first full moon of the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you receive notifications every time I do put up a video. Regardless of who you are, make sure you hit that like button, smash it right now as to help the channel grow. Thank you so much to all of you who do. And last but not least, if you would like to book a reading with me, you can do that at wisdomdropsastrology.com. The link for that website is in the description box and down below in the comments. So let's get into this business. Let's get jiggy with it. What do we see? Well, first off, it's a Cancer full moon. As you'll see in the chart here, the moon is in her own sign, okay? Converse of the moon is, of course, the sun, which is what makes it a full moon at 16 degrees of Capricorn. Conjunct the sun during this lunation is Mercury, and Mercury is actually retrograde, hence that little R next to it. So there's a 1 degree difference or a 1 degree orb between Mercury and the sun, which is kind of an interesting thing to note, as Mercury is also retrograde, meaning that it's going to appear to travel backwards in the sky and perfectly conjunct the sun in just a matter of, minutes, really, because Mercury is so fast. So anyway, we're going to read that. We're also going to read more into the kind of aspects that are being made from the moon, or to the moon, as it may be, during this lunation. We're definitely going to talk about that Mercury significance, okay? And I also want to touch on Uranus, and just glancing at this, it seems like those are really the two most pronounced aspects at the table here. So we're going to discuss that, the Uranus-Mercury kind of meaning behind all this. And we're going to read Saturn lastly, because Saturn is the ruling planet of Capricorn, which is the sign that is hosting both the purple glyph, Mercury, and the orange glyph, the sun. Okay, so let's dive on into that. First things first, Cancer full moon, very quintessential full moon. Lots of emotions, lots of feelings, lots of sentiments, lots of maybe tears, or just like being more in your feels, more like sensitive in general to what people say, what's going on around you, etc. Probably like pretty nostalgic. This is the axis, the Capricorn Cancer axis of nostalgia and old times, old times that were the good times, you know what I mean? Kind of looking back on things like, yeah, that was better then than it is now. Maybe remembering your like antiques, or like, things that are more classical, like your sort of family traditions, or your like personal heritage, or like what you want to build for your own life and your own people around you, your own legacy. So when you do pass, what will people say about you? What will your family remember about you when you pass? It's like one of those sorts of situations. And that's just like more on your consciousness right now, because this axis is about those sorts of things, like what's passed on from before, and also like really kind of basic, what is like worth, or what is worthy, what's like valuable. And I mean that not necessarily, which it can be in a monetary sense, but almost like more of a values that were instilled kind of thing, or kind of like this is the way it is, like the rules, because Capricorn is about rules, and it's about, this idea of like constructs and structures, right? Whereas Cancer's about like, this is the feeling that I was experiencing at the time, and this is how I feel about this situation. So you can see how it's very like how it is associated with the classics when you get into those sorts of nuts and bolts of the details or whatever. So being a lunation, being a full moon lunation, you're going to see, more of an awareness around feeling, more of an awareness around maybe your belly, maybe you've been gaining some weight because the holidays, Cancer rules the stomach. Maybe it's, your stomach's been messed up because you've been emotionally messed up. I don't know, but there's lots of different possibilities for how that could go. Definitely more sensitive, definitely a possibility of being like lost in your emotions. So if you're prone to that, just be aware. Yeah, and I think I'm going to transition now into some of the details. So let's first go to Saturn, which is the red cross with a tail looking glyph over here at 23 degrees of Aquarius, just hanging out. It has been a long stay, if I do say so, in the sign of Aquarius, but as you see here, Saturn is ticking right along, and it won't be too long till Saturn goes into Pisces yet again. That'll be a big deal for those of us with Saturn in Aquarius. But for now, let's stay focused on the present, which is that Saturn, the ruling planet of Capricorn, is going to set the tone for what this Mercury conjunct the sun is, which we'll get to next. But really, Saturn is the ruling planet of not only Capricorn, but also Aquarius. So it rules two signs. And with that, Saturn is the ruling patron goddess and god, depending on your ancient or modern lore you associate with that planet, of these signs. And what it means is that Saturn is an authority figure in our modern understanding of Saturn, but Saturn is also the force of denial. It's the ability to say, no, I don't want that. No, like that in of itself, the no is very Saturn. Saturn is the very idea or construct of a boundary. Saturn is all things hard and physically hard, like walls, like, physical, rock, like things that are tough, right? Just as much, Saturn is like the concept of no, like the metaphorical no, or like the ability in a relationship, that sort of boundary that you can draw between you and another person or whatever. That's a sort of like denial, if you will, that Saturn has rulership over. And so when you start thinking about Saturn as that, you can understand why Saturn is also extended to rule things like the ability to define one's system and by themselves. So like, what is it that you yourself want to be kind of structured by or around or defined by or organized by, or like, how do I want to say it? Like, what is your stance? What is your form that you choose to take on any given topic or on life itself? That is Saturn. Saturn is the ability, or the definition process, I should say, of self and self structure, not just like the super details necessarily of how you structure yourself, but what's the general like form? What are the broad strokes? Where are the hard yeses and the hard no's? That is all very Saturn. So Saturn is like your inner authority as well. And it's also your ability or your definition of self, as I just kind of discussed. So, how do you define self becomes really relevant as we talk about Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. Because Aquarius is like the let your freak flag fly sort of sign, generally speaking. And there's so many flavors of Aquarius. It's a very, like all the signs, it's unique, of course. But, Aquarius takes on that bold energy of Saturn. Sometimes Aquarius is a real stickler for rules. And they want to play by the book. And it's really important for them because they see society working better when people play by the rules, generally. Sometimes Aquarius is like, F the rules, we're going to go off the rails and we're going to make our own rules, and it's like everybody's going to do what is best for them. And, everybody's got to do their own thing and individuate. And it's sort of this radical individuation energy. So Aquarius can be any number of things, but in any which incarnation it comes in, it's very, let's say, strong. It's fixed in its modality after all, and it's an air sign. So it's all about analytical stuff, like thinking, like mental playground kind of energy, or like just the mental realm, like thoughts, identity constructs. That's why you see Aquarius being associated a lot with human rights, like civil, social rights or whatever. So And it is associated with like, yeah, groups of people and stuff like that, you know, like who coming together in organizations with a cause or a mission, if you will. But, you know, at the end of the day, what I'm really getting at with this is that Saturn is in its own sign, Aquarius, and Aquarius is all about these ideological constructs, is what the theme through everything I just said is. It's an ideological construct because it's an air sign, y'all. Ideological air sign. Hello, translation, right? Construct. Saturn ruled much. Construct, construction, also ruled by Saturn, right? Because the physical realm, right? Like Saturn rules everything hard to the touch. So anyway, it can also be what's difficult, like hard, like difficulty. So, you know, what is Saturn, you know, in this instance for you? I think that's a personal question. I went through a whole lot of options, which when I do personal readings, shameless plug, Wizdom Dropz, astrology.com down below, you can book there. You know, this is like what I always say to clients is like, it's a menu. You choose what fits, you know? So I just gave you a pretty robust menu. You can go ahead and choose what fits off of that menu for you. But whatever it is, Saturn is speaking during this lunation, just by virtue of being the host planet or the ruling planet of Capricorn energy. And so, you know, it's informing whatever this conversation is with Mercury, and conversation being, of course, the word to use, as Mercury literally rules over words. So let's get into that. So basically take everything I said about Saturn, and now we're going to like use that as like a stage or a setting or a literal foundation. Like that was the cake, and now we're getting into the frosting, or like we're getting into the toppings on the pizza now with Mercury, okay? And Mercury is basically this like conjunction right now, right, with the sun. But Mercury is a speedy, witty being. And Mercury is also retrograde, meaning that it's all about your thoughts and how you think, and also how you communicate. And even like people who are literal siblings or feel like siblings or neighbors, people in your immediate environment to you, you're rethinking a lot of that stuff. You're redoing a lot of it. You're rethinking a lot of it. And you're also going deeper with that. So this could translate into deeper conversations with those people. This could translate into revising some agreement you had with those people. It could be something like, hey, wait a minute, I need to rethink something regarding these people. Anything with that re prefix is pretty appropriate here. And because it is retrograde, Mercury is going to retrograde back and conjunct the sun very quickly, meaning that it's going to go Kazemi again and be burned by the sun. Once it passes through, you know, it'll be purified yet again when it goes forward motion. So we really have to think about how does that translate into our daily lives. Mercury's about communication. So right now there's something going on where like you're divulging interpersonal like secrets or things that have been pent up in your own consciousness to these people, or maybe to yourself regarding these people. And now it's time to really say like, okay, this is what I mean. And you know, depending on where this falls for you in your chart, it can mean more personal things or less personal things. But when you have Mercury retrograde so close to the sun, it's like the story of events going on at any given moment. The sun is deeply impacted by words and the power of words and thoughts. So just be mindful or like considerate of how you phrase things right now, because people could be particularly sensitive to that. In terms of the conversation that's happening here with Mercury, there is a trine to what's considered the higher octave of Mercury in modern astrology, Uranus. And you'll see Uranus is at 15 degrees of Taurus. Again, Mercury's at 17 degrees of Capricorn. That's a 2-degree range of difference, which means that there is a harmonious conversation, hence the blue line connecting those two planets, okay? Uranus being this kind of maroonish brown colored glyph in the sign of Taurus at the top of the chart here. And, you know, it's a harmonious conversation. It's one that's just kind of vibes and gels between these two beings. And the reason I think that Uranus is associated as the higher octave of Mercury is because, remember I said Mercury is really fast. Well, Uranus is even faster. Uranus is like lightning. If, Mercury is like a golf cart speeding around to like a park or a community, and it's like pew, 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 or like the mail person, if they're, literally Mercury rules messengers and messages. So it's a very apropos example. When you see the mail people like zooming around, they're like stopping at this box, drop it off, got to move to the next box, drop it off. Like they're very quick, right? Uranus is literally lightning. So it's like, yeah, male people, you're really quick, little male person, whatever. But Uranus is a freaking lightning bolt. So that's kind of like next level, right? So that kind of explains why Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. In another way of looking at this, Uranus is kind of basically by 4-degree range conjunct the North Node. So, this is an interesting little like, to notice, because there's this harmonious aspect taking place between Mercury and Uranus, saying like, hey, we can enlighten ourselves, or we can come into new areas of understanding, or we can get into touch maybe with our guides at a higher realm, or maybe technology is flowing better and easier for us during this Mercury retrograde than most Mercury retrogrades, because Uranus is in a harmonious aspect and Uranus rules surprises. But since it's in a harmonious aspect, maybe they're more like beneficial surprises, or more like liberating based surprises, rather than like, oh, my shit fucked up again, pardon my French. So, like it's not so like tragic or whatever, compared to what maybe we are normally experiencing if we have issues with technology during Mercury retrograde. Yeah, Uranus is also retrograde. That's like half the year. It's not really anything to get too worked up about. I don't really pay too much attention to that. It's an outer planet, so it's, it has big impact on us, but I don't think it's anything, if anything, it's to say like, be aware of how quickly things can move right now. And if they seem to really work and flow, maybe don't be too suspicious of it, I guess would be my kind of, reflection on that. Mars is retrograde, which makes sense why I've been finding a hard time finding my get up and go lately. But then again, it is holiday season. So if anybody else is feeling like oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I don't feel like doing, nada. That's why, probably, because Mars is literally retrograde and Mars is one's willpower. So enjoy that while it lasts. And yeah, I think that's about all I had to say in this. Surprises are likely to be more beneficial, I guess, would be the takeaway from that Uranus aspect. Like this video, people. I do not get paid to make these videos, so make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I do get paid for readings. If you want to book a reading with me at wisdomdropsastrology.com, link is again in the description box and down below. With that said, through next time, until next time, may the stars be with you. Peace.